Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. Good morning to Northeast Texas, Southeast Texas, Northwest Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana, everywhere where that 100,000 watt signal permeates those little cracks to get into your radio for those who are still using radio. Good morning to the rest of the world. We are going to have a great show for you today. Folks, I want to thank you, just like Rourke just did, for the fund drive. Of course, that's how we stay alive. Thank you so kindly for those who were very generous. Please remember that in as much as we're not in fund drive, you can still go to kpft.org and support us by hitting the donate button, scroll into Politics Done Right, and still getting one of the many features and offers we had during the previous one. But anyhow, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Before I get started, it's time for the geniuses in the studio. Buenos dias, mis hermanos favoritos.
And good morning, Egberto, and good morning to Puget Sound. Why the heck not?
Why the heck not?
Hey, Egberto, you sound like you're talking from a bucket. You sound like you're talking off mic. Yeah. It's just not there. You're like you're in the other room. Not like your normal stuff. All right. It's not a rant, but it's more of probably an opinion piece today. All the screaming and hollering about this, Trump, decision, this Trump conviction. They're screaming, "Oh my God, it's voter fraud. It's election interference." Well, yes, it is. It is election interference and it is election fraud. It is voter fraud. And the reason it's that is not because people might think, oh, well, the big bad system got after our candidate. Not at all. A scheme was concocted, and executed to cover up unsavory things about their candidate that they may have made people think, well, maybe we don't want a guy that does this. Maybe we don't want this man. So they covered it up and they made the payments, which is not illegal by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, people get blackmailed all the time. However, the illegal part of it was covering it up and cooking the books and lying to everybody about it. So, yes, it was election interference. It was like election fraud, but the fraud part was on them. They committed the fraud, not the system working against their candidate. Oh my God, this godlike man has been convicted of wrongdoing. How can this possibly be? Well, probably because 12 people said it was so. They heard the evidence. They went, yep, this man is guilty. Very short deliberation time and guilty on all accounts. So if anyone should be angry about anything, it's the voters who originally voted for him, because they sort of put a fresh coat of paint over some garbage and said, oh, look at this great candidate. No, people, it's not election interference and it's not election fraud in the way that you might think it is. So think again. Jack has a whole page of thoughts for us today. And it is, while Egberto is working on his microphone to get it in the same room with him, we're going to listen to Jack's wisdom. What you got, man?
Good morning, Egberto. Anyway, we get a lot of trouble from our oligarchs and what they want to do with war and stuff. So I wrote this. The oligarchs have us right where they want us. They use every trick in the book to figure out what you're going to do. They use think tanks, marketing, consumption, psychology, sociology. Then they write law to move you in a direction you may not be aware you're moving to. From the first pop gun to your first Barbie doll, you're being programmed to acclimate to a society they design, not you. From going to war to who you're going to marry. Our military was financed and built on the backs of the citizen taxpayer, your money. But only the oligarchs have access to the U.S. war machine, but they need the citizens to approve of them going to war. So they lie. They create a false narrative, usually save the world from evil or something like that. I envision the oligarchs watching us like some game show, but talking about us like we're sheep to be sheared, cattle to be butchered, or chickens to be plucked. And they're doing a damn fine job of plucking us, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes,
Oh,
they
there
are.
you are. You moved your
Is that
microphone
any
to the
better?
same room. Much
All right.
better.
All right, I'm glad to hear it is. But anyhow, folks, so Jack, you nailed it as usual, brother. You nailed it as usual. What can I say? Anyway, good morning, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain, who is currently with us in the chat. Melanie, we missed you at Ask Egberto Anything on Saturday, but you know what, man? It's great having you here this morning. And look, folks, we have a great discussion to have today. Over last week, I interviewed, I think it was Thursday or Friday, I interviewed Ali Velshi, from MSNBC. If you listen to me, there are three reporters I always say we should all listen to. And the reason why is these guys are rounded. They know what they're talking about. They have world experience and they can see things from many points of view. And this is who Ali is. So what I want to do to start the program is to play that interview that we did with Ali Velshi. And after that, we'll be right back to take your calls and the other subjects. Today's three subjects are Ali Velshi discusses journalism and more. Trump's lawyer throws him under the bus, and Medicare Advantage, a piece by Tom Hartman. We probably won't get to all of it, but whatever we get to, we'll get to. And whatever we don't, just go to politicsandright.com/newsletter to pick it up. So without further ado, let's go ahead to listen to Ali Velshi from MSNBC. Welcome to another edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Ali Velshi is an award-winning journalist, host of Velshi and chief correspondent for MSNBC, and a weekly economics contributor to NPR's Here and Now. He has covered multiple U.S. midterm and presidential elections and significant news stories around the globe, including extensive reporting from Israel during the war with Israel and Hamas, Ukraine, and across Central and Eastern Europe during the Russian invasion, the Syrian refugee crisis from Turkey and Jordan, and the Iran nuclear deal in Tehran. He hosts the Velshi Banned Book Club on MSNBC and the Velshi Banned Book Club podcast. Folks, check those things out. You've got to listen to that. You got to watch it. There are a few cable or broadcast hosts and journalists who I listen to or learn from at face value based on the trust they have earned with their reporting. Ali Velshi makes that list that fits on one hand. Velshi has won numerous awards that I'll enumerate in the subsequent blog and article after this interview. Anyway, Ali, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
It's good to be with you, my friend. I also consume all the stuff you put out. And, I just love the fact that in this world where news can be very shallow, right? You get the headlines and you don't get the context, or you have a hot take on the last thing that happened. One of the things I love about you is it's like you read the whole story. You go all the way back and tell you, where did this start? How did it become the way it did? And I think that is so desperately needed in our news environment today. So thank you for having me on.
Well, I appreciate that, and ditto on that. Look, you wrote a very important book. I'll be honest. First of all, I read the preface, and then I kind of jumped through it. And I'll talk about what I jumped through before. But again, like I said, in reading the book, I said, well, look, I listened to Ali all of the times, and this is just a microcosm of who this guy has always been. So I am going to read the entire 300 pages, but I just have to do it over time. Anyway,
Sure.
How to Become an American in 3 Steps got to me. And that you could make a movie out of that chapter. Look, you said it's 3 steps. The first step is arriving. The second step is the paperwork. The third step, I tell you something, really took to me. Here's what you wrote. You write this about being shot by the police, even as they knew you are a journalist. That was the moment, you said, that was the moment when I finally became a citizen in the deepest sense of the word, because that was the day I understood how invested in this place I truly need to be. One day I'll find out who shot me. And when I do, I'll go and I'll thank them, because what they did was open my eyes. They woke me up. They changed my entire outlook on democracy. That rubber bullet told me, you are in this fight. You are not watching it anymore. You are in it, whether you want to be or not. And that epiphany, in turn, is what led to this book.
Yeah.
Man, that is profound. Tell me about that.
Well, as journalists, we always struggle with, are we observers or are we in the story? And we try very hard not to be in the story, right? But as you know from my reporting, because you followed it for a long time, I don't ever want to be the subject of the story, but I always want to be in it. Insofar as I'm always on the ground with people. In the Ukraine war, I was on the train platforms when people were coming in. I don't like to be on balconies. I like to be talking to people all the time about what's going on in their experience. So I don't have this division between journalists on high and everybody else out here. But what I realized in Minneapolis when shot, not that I was shot, people get shot all the time, shot by an agent of the state who, I haven't tried this in court, but I believe knew that we were journalists and we identified ourselves as such. And I realized at that point, you're not an observer. You can't say, wow, what a great job. I get to watch history unfolding. You're in history. And all of a sudden, it created this direct line 125 years back to my family, who had been people who had done things to try and better the society in which they lived, including fighting apartheid for a long time, right? I have a grandfather who was Gandhi's youngest student. I have an uncle who was in jail for breaking the law and fighting apartheid. And I thought that when my parents came to these shores 50 plus years ago, that battle was over. That fight for democracy was over. We live in real democracies. Little did I know that democracy is a cactus. Right? It's pretty hardy if you have it, but you can't just stick the cactus in a dark drawer and hope it grows. It needs some care and watering. And we are all in that fight. That's when I realized in that moment, I'm in it. I'm in it. It's not just my job to tell people what's going on, but to bear witness for them, to hold power to account. Police and later on, Donald Trump described that night in Minneapolis when I got shot as something far more colorful, but entirely wrong. It was entirely dishonest. It was this idea that we and the protesters were doing things that we simply were not, because it was live on TV. I was shot while live on TV describing a peaceful rally, a peaceful march into which the state police and the Minneapolis city police and the National Guard had come in and started firing tear gas and flashbangs and rubber bullets. If we're not there to tell that story, the story does not get told. And hence, we have to be part of the story of democracy. Democracy depends on an informed electorate. If the electorate does not know that the police are shooting at people who are not doing anything wrong, that the police are shooting at journalists to try and silence them, that the police want journalists curfewed because when journalists are curfewed, police get to do whatever they want to do. That's what happens in other countries. You and I come from other places. We know what happens when journalism is silenced and authorities get to do what they want to do. And that cannot be allowed to happen in America.
You have a very interesting history. You are a person that came from many places. You said you had so many passports. What does one more have to do with it? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think one of the reasons you are so good at what you do is because you have seen it from so many different angles, not only ethnically, not only racially, but in every single aspect. And I think to some extent, journalists, if they haven't lived it, they at least need to have learned about it. And our educational system is so poor that they don't. They just think glory, glory, hallelujah, and nothing else. So please expand on that.
We have to read. If we don't live it, and I have lived much of it, and I have, thanks to my employers, NBC and Al Jazeera and CNN, I have been around the world for these things. So when I was in Iran when we did the nuclear deal, but I was talking to Iranians the whole time. I was also interviewing vice presidents and politicians, and I do a lot of that. But that's half the job. The other half of the job is knowing how people live and how people think. And I really think that. Look, in 2015 is when I became an American citizen. What did I care? I had a lot of citizenships, and I'm Canadian. Having a Canadian citizenship is probably one of the best citizenships in the entire world. I thought of citizenship as a series of rights, including the right to vote. And that's important, but I didn't care that much. In fact, many of us didn't care that much in 2015 because we weren't worried that democracy was coming apart. So what did my one vote in New York actually matter? What happened that night in Minneapolis is I learned that citizenship is not simply your right to vote or any of the rights you are accorded under the Constitution. It is your obligation to make society better. It is your I complained to a buddy who said, a Canadian who had become an American, who said, "Why didn't you become an American citizen?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to do jury duty." And she laced into me. She said,
I read that. Yes.
Yeah. She said, you want to enjoy the fruits of this country and the good things that it gives you, but you don't want to sit for jury duty. But her larger point was not about jury duty, but I still haven't done jury duty, by the way. The larger point was you owe your society certain things. And in this perilous time in which we exist in 2024, in 25 years, when our grandchildren ask us, what is it you were doing when democracy was imperiled in 2024? You do not want to be able to say nothing. You do not want to be able to say, but I wasn't really paying attention. It didn't really affect me. It fully affects you. So my getting shot made me realize, because I'm not a black man in America who is in danger of dying when the police pull them over. I am an American citizen who understands that people are not treated equally in this country. So when a black man's life is snuffed out on video in Minneapolis, democracy and justice are not applied equally, and that applies to me. In 2024, today in America, you and I enjoy certain rights that every woman in our lives does not enjoy, which means democracy is not being applied fairly and equally, which means it is not finished yet. And because I come from a place where there was apartheid, I understand that when it's not equal for all, it's not equal for any. 6% of the population of South Africa, the white people, had the vote. They thought they had a perfect democracy. If you were white in South Africa, it felt amazing. But there's zero democracy. If there's not democracy for all, it doesn't exist. And that's what we have to realize. If you don't struggle to vote because of where you live, it doesn't mean that it's not your fight to make sure others can vote clearly. If you don't ever need to get an abortion, it doesn't mean that you don't have to fight for others who may need that one day. And that's what that date in 2020 when I got shot meant to me. I am in the fight the same way everybody else is. I do not have a privilege as a journalist to stand off to the side, watch what's going on, and tell you all about it.
Ali, it's interesting because in the original journalist school of thought, it was person A says something, person B says something, and you just throw that out there. And what the Trump group, the MAGA group, and many others, even let's say during the Red Revolution, etc., what they've learned to do is they've used that supposed balance to abuse the system, to mislead the folks. And what I love about what some journalists, as I said, on one hand, they do is they force context. And that's what I see you're able to do in a manner that doesn't destroy the conversation, the dialogue. Right. Tell me a little bit about that. And
it shouldn't destroy journalism, right? I see it on Twitter all the time. People say, if there's a discussion about whether it's raining, you don't book one person who says it's raining and book another person who says it's not raining. You open the window and you put your hand outside and you find out if it's raining, right? There's truth and there's bullshit. And And we don't give them, we are not here to give them equal weight. What I am entirely prepared to give equal weight to people who are not lying to me. You may have a strong view about abortion or minimum wage or health care or whatever the case is. But if you are arguing honestly from where you come, maybe it's a religious belief, maybe it's a philosophical belief, but you're prepared to make the argument properly, you are invited onto my show to have a debate. And I will debate you even if my audience doesn't like you or your opinions. And I do it fairly often, as you know. I book people and I hear on social media, I don't know why you're giving this person a platform. I will give you a platform if you're being honest. If you honestly believe there should be no minimum wage or minimum wage should be lower or there shouldn't be universal health care. These are all things I believe should happen, right? I have my own views and I don't see anything wrong with my viewer understanding that I have views. There's this thing about objectivity in journalism, right? That you've got to be objective. Objective doesn't mean pretend you don't have opinions. I have opinions. I cover hurricanes, right? I have an opinion. Hurricanes are bad for people. They kill people. I cover tornadoes. Guess what? Tornadoes are bad for people. They kill people. I cover school shootings. School shootings are terrible. I'm against them. I'm absolutely against them. I'm also against lying. I'm also against people who run for office who are against democracy, because while you and I may not share views about how our country should be run, we share views about how we engage in civic activity, or at least we should. I'm not going to share views with you about the fact that this should be a dictatorship or this should be an authoritarian country. And yet, there's one party right now running on the basis of a document called Project 2025, which is more than 800 pages long in great detail. And one of your obligations as a citizen is to read it and understand that if you cast a ballot for members of that party, please don't come and complain to me in 2025 and 2026 and 2027 that you feel your rights have been curtailed because you voted for that. Do not vote for your rights to be curtailed. We are not fighting off missiles from another country who is trying to invade us. We have the vote. We have the right to make our own decisions in America. And that is the obligation of citizenship that I now hold because I now have an American passport. Now I am an American citizen. I must fight back the pressures on democracy, just like you must and everybody else must. As journalists, we stand no higher than anyone else. We are foot soldiers for democracy.
You know what is interesting? Imagine if all our journalists thought that way and realized that they are part of it. And
Yes.
if being a part of it means that you don't allow what we are trying like hell not to occur in this country right now. Very important. Now, let me ask you a difficult question. I know you have your book and you have the different blogs and stuff that you do on the side, but you also have a huge platform at a corporate station. You are one of the few that I see who is able to navigate that at times there are competing interests.
Yes.
How can you promote that to other journalists to understand that, yes, sometimes there are conflicts with the way we're going to tell a story, but
Yes.
we must find a way to tell a story in as much as we have those around us.
Correct. And I am not troubled by it. I understand that even where I work on some very serious issues that people feel very seriously about, there are different views. The various prospective hosts hold different views. There are so-called prevailing narratives about certain stories. But I will work with those hosts. I appear on their shows and they appear on my shows. I sub in, as you know, for various people whose views are not the same as mine, but I am a pluralist, right? I believe that the quality that we most hold, even as equal to democracy, is pluralism. The idea that we live in a world in which people hold different views, they have different faiths, they have different appetites, they have different diets, they have different lifestyles. And I am not here to tolerate yours. I write in my book, I think tolerance is a terrible word.
Thank you.
Tolerate what you do or your religion or your life or your skin color. It is for me to embrace the fact that both of us live in this place and share in its fruits. Because I came from a family who, by the color of your skin, they could not vote. They were not entitled to certain freedoms. So they came out of apartheid thinking, I want none of this ever again. I want none of this bullshit. People are not judged by their backgrounds and by their ethnicity and by their religion and by their sexuality and by their color or by their political views. So I do not hold it against anyone, including my colleagues who do not share my view on what I think are very important matters, including Israel, Gaza, right? I will continue to engage in them as long as they, and I believe they do, engage in good faith discussions about the whole thing. And as long as good faith discussions mean being open to debate. Be prepared to debate. You can't just hold opinions and not be prepared to argue why your opinions are there and not be prepared to listen to others. Look, Israel, Gaza, it's a complicated matter, man. It's been going on for a long time. If it weren't complicated, it probably would have been solved a long time ago. We're not going to get anywhere simply by yelling at each other. We're not going to get anywhere by calling people names. We're not going to get anywhere by accusing people of things. We're going to get places by continuing to engage in difficult conversations with people who do not share our views. And while I work in corporate America and I understand the limitations of that, I will say my employers have supported my right to do that, my right to engage in whatever dialogue I want to engage in with whatever guests I want to engage in or whatever colleagues I want to engage in. I sometimes get the sense that I'm swimming upstream or working against a prevailing narrative, but that's fine. I'm a journalist. I'm set up to do that.
That's why everybody needs to get small acts of courage, a legacy of endurance, and the fight for democracy, folks. That book is going to be listed in the article and the correspondent blog for this program. Ali, for everybody who I interview, there's always a last question, and it's because I know my limitations, and that is, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't, or what do you want to say that we hadn't touched on based on the interview thus far?
Well, you know, the message in the book, it's an easy read. And part of it is people take all sorts of messages from it, right? Some people think it's a book about immigration. Some people think it's a book about ancestry. Some people think it's a memoir, but it's not. It's more about my family than it is about me. But fundamentally, it is an ode to citizenship. It is an ode to the idea that all of us can, in our own small way, change the circumstance we're in. Many of us feel very disheartened and overwhelmed by the political situation we're in, but we can engage, as you do, right? You engage all the time. You have not decided, I'm done. This is too hard. This is too much work. And the whole point of that book is that we all have the power to change something. You may not even live to see the change. But because that's what I write about in my family. My grandfather died in 1961 at the age of 58, thinking all his efforts had failed. And yet his son became a member of parliament. And his grandson is the guy you're talking to right now. So my point is, do not give up. Do not think that you are impotent. You are not. You have strength and you have power.
Ali Velshi, award-winning journalist, host of Velshi, and chief correspondent for MSNBC. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I really wanted to talk to him after, again, you know, journalism is a difficult thing right now, especially those who have used the construct of old journalism. And note, I said the constructs of old journalism. When you have a he says, she says, he says type journalism, what happens is those who would do harm purposefully, what you'd find them doing is actually using that impartiality of the original journalist form of being against the interests of most of us. And what Ali was pointing out is, no, we don't have to make believe that we are unopinionated. We don't have to make it be thought of that we are just going to parrot what people say. If it's raining, we don't bring somebody who says it's raining on and somebody who says it's not raining. We put our darn hands out there and figure out if it's raining. And if our people try to mislead, when you're interviewing them, you said, no, do not mislead the American people. This is exactly what happened. Anyway, Tag is on hold for some time. Let's go to Brother Tag. He says Trump felony restricts travel. Tag, how are you doing this morning?
Well, Ali Velshi is a tough act to follow, in my opinion. So but I'm going to try. One thing I really liked about what Ali said is a tolerance for people lying. You know, and right now on Facebook, there are a lot of these MAGA people that are lying about everything. And I think the best thing we can do is call them out, you know, and say, yeah, that's just a lie. I don't know why you continue to lie to people. And it seems to be effective. So I would say that if we want to do something about it, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you know, here's a funny thing, Tag. beforehand, I want to let folks know that, remember, the call in, we're back to call in as normal. So you can give us a call like right now at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. You can call in right now and be the second person to call after Tag. But Tag, look, I was on a program last night. Okay, from KPFT. Said has a show at, I guess, around 9 or so in the morning. I mean, at night. And he, I was on his show last night, said Keeler. And when he had me paired with a good guy, it's a Republican guy. But what I noticed in our conversation is that he had a lot of facts that he was shooting out to sort of go against the statements that I made, and the thing about it, he truly believed these lies that have been told. So one of the comments I always make is math does not lie. And then I went through the numbers, and why I think this guy is a good guy is that eventually he backed off and he said, well, I don't know those numbers. Well, I don't know that. I haven't seen these numbers on my own. And I think that is what we have to do in a lot of ways, Tags. When you have in journalism, when you have folks that are perennial liars, right? You do one of two things. You figure out if they are the perpetrators of the lies or they are victims of the lies. And what you find is most of the MAGA folks, most of the folks that spew all this misinformation, they are victims of the lie because of the sources that they believe in. And you have to make that distinction so you can know how to deal with them. The brother that I spoke to last night, I liked. And the reason why is we could communicate and he was open to hear things. I'm not going to change him from being a conservative or whatever, but he's at least going to be listening to not just pour out a whole lot of crap. Tag, what else?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. The big thing I wanted to mention this morning is the fact that, when somebody has a felony in this country, there's a lot of other countries they can't go to. So talking about our ex-president, with his felony, he can't go to Canada anymore. He can't go to the United Kingdom. He can't go to Israel or even Ireland. Just think if he wants to go to Ireland to play golf, he can't go there anymore. So, his problems that he has with his felonies here in this country is one thing, but there's a whole world out there that say, nah, we don't want your type in our country anymore. And so all of a sudden he's entered a whole new realm of, we don't want your type. So
I didn't know just being convicted of a felony meant that in some countries you can't, in the United States means some country you couldn't go to. That's a learning thing for me right now. Didn't know that.
George Bush had a drunk driving, George Jr.
Uh-huh.
He had a drunk driving. He couldn't even go to Canada.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's like 34 countries in our world that prevents you from, and then you have to go through like a rehabilitation thing, send a bunch of money, a lot of paperwork, 6 months, a year. I mean, it's difficult. Once you have a felony on your record, it's difficult to go to these other countries, or you could get thrown in jail there too.
Wow. So well, look, thanks, Tag. As usual, like I always say, I have the best callers in the world. Yeah. Yesterday I was talking on the show, and at the end of the show, they were asking me a few things. And I said, one of the things that I love about doing this kind of work is you're in touch with so many people with so many points of views and things. You get a chance to have daily learning. So thank you, hermano. You have a good rest of your day, my brother.
You too, Egberto. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to Donald. And folks, the phones are wide open and we're taking calls. We're not saying, please call and donate. Of course, you can still do that. But we're saying, give us a call, 713-526-5738. Don't wait till the end of the show when I have to then cut your time short. But right now we have Donald on the line. Buenos dias, Donaldo.
Hey, good morning, Egberto. How are you?
I am fine, my brother. Talk to me.
You guys are just out of your clucking minds. That's the problem. Why did the chicken cross the road?
Because it needed to cross the road? I don't know.
No, because the cow told him to, because the chicken wanted to try Chick-fil-A. That's what we are. It is in America. He just didn't know he was going to be on the menu after they fattened him up.
Oh, my God. Donald, you always have one. You always have one. Anyway, what else is up, Donald? Tell me.
Oh, nothing else. I mean, Steve, me and Mr. Trump have something in common now. We're both convicted felons, and you like me, all right. So it's just the way it goes. The jury was out. Now the jury is in.
Look, brother, I don't. People. Let me be honest with you. I do not hate Trump. I find Trump amusing. I find Trump hilarious. When Trump was the boss in those shows, I found it. There's no problem. I just don't want Trump leading the country. I want competence to lead in the country. I mean, when it comes to people, right, Donald? I mean, and by the way, I was speaking to my friend, the guy that I know yesterday on the show, and I looked at him and I said, this conservative dude, I would vote for this dude for president because he at least really cares. He cares about people. So that's what it's all about. But Donald, what else you got to tell me before I jump to Harry?
No, that's it. I just called. It's been a minute since I bothered you, but have a good one.
You take care, my brother. Nice hearing from you. Let's go to Hermano. All right, buddy. Let's go to Hermano de otra madre. Harry, come on in. That means brother from another mother. Okay?
Brother and you're my brother from another mother. Egberto.
Hold on a second, Harry. Hold on a second. I want to welcome some other folks. Thank you, Shakula Hairstylist in the chat, as well as Eric Hayes in the chat. You guys are really going at it today. Great to have you guys part of the PDR posse. All right, come on in, Harry.
Yeah, I'm glad you interviewed Ali Velshi. I know you were been planning on doing that. I heard him on the Middle last week when they were talking about the Donald Trump conviction. I tried to get on that show. They talked to me, but they didn't talk to me on air, and I liked a lot of the comments. He was commenting on what the callers were saying. But, yeah, you come armed, and I enjoyed Tag, as usual. Tag, you are very bright and brilliant. I love your comments. I wish I could have heard Donald's comments there, but I was getting on here, so I'll have to go on the archives. I love Donald's comments as well. Like you said, you have very bright callers on this show, and you learn things. And I didn't know that about the felonies, that you could not go to these other countries if you had a felony. But who would want that filth, Donald Trump, anyway, in their country? They don't need that filth. But, yeah, let's see. Jack Van Diver and Howard Reynolds, they nailed it. They exposed these lies when these oligarchs and plutocrats tell these lies. And Howard was correct about the election interference in 2016. It's just the Republicans turning it around, and they project it onto the Democrats. But when he commented on that, and with the hush money payments that they did, and they just turn around and say it's the Democrats' fault, and then you expose those lies. And when you were on your show last night, the conservative fellow that you were talking to, if there are things that you disagreed with, when you come armed for battle, you're able to expose those lies, as Arnie Arneson talks about on her show. You come armed for battle to expose lies, and you push back when these MAGA people tell lies and they regurgitate stuff, and you've got to push back on that so that people don't get duped and fooled. And that's why it's important to listen to shows like Politics Done Right, You Talk, on the Middle, when people give good on NPR, when they give good informative information, and they have people like Ali Velshi, Tom Hartman, and when he gives good information, it's important to listen to those talking points because they tell the truth. My poor friend in Florida, who I was talking with yesterday, every time with him, you say something truthful about Donald Trump, it bothers him. He does, he won't really listen to your talking point, and all he does is say, "Oh, you hate Trump. You hate Trump."
Harry, and let me just say one thing that I because I want to add something to that because I think it's important. You notice when I spoke to Tag and we started to talk, I said there are two when it comes to people that you talk to. There are two groups. There are those who are knowingly misinforming and lying, and there are those who are victims of the misinformation and the lie. And the reason they're victims is that the sources that they trust are those forces that are misinforming them. Why am I telling you this again? Because my goal isn't to have this permanent conflict of fighting with your friend, right? I would love to build a relationship with your friend, right? So that instead of
gave you a phone number to call you.
Right. But here's what I'm trying to say in more. I would like you to go ahead and tell him, drop me a line and etc. Because here's what I'm trying to talk about. We're spinning our wheels. If we just sit back and say, oh, this guy's lying at whatever, I have to get with him. It's like with my relatives that are MAGA, right? I actually get to them. I'm not trying to tell them not to be MAGA. I am trying to tell them vote their interests. I'm trying to tell them at least spew out stuff that's out there and point it out. So there's a different kind of dynamics I'm trying to establish, more not adversarial, but one of listening and talking and getting it through. So I want, for folks who think other folks are just crazy out of their minds, let's figure out if they're the perpetrators of lies or the victims of lies. And let's work with the victims of lies. The perpetrators of lies, we need to extricate altogether. But anyway, Harry, anything real quick before I jump to Jim?
Okay, I'll share this with you. When I was in the post office Friday mailing something, this guy was talking to his friend on the phone, and I happened to overhear him. He was talking about Donald Trump, and he said, oh, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Donald Trump, that, oh, I'm the innocent guy. It's election interference. They're beating up on me. It's election fraud and all this stuff. And then he just blurted out. He told us to drink bleach. And then he used a curse word, which I'm not going to use that. And then when he got off the phone, and then I turned to him and I said, what's your name, sir? And he said, oh, my name's Eric. And I said, Eric, I love the way you think. Keep thinking that way. And Ali Velshi is correct. We're not going to get anywhere yelling at each other. We have to listen to each other's talking points so we get to the truth and get understanding.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Harry. We talk another time, brother. Peace. Let's go to Brother Jim. Come on in, Jim.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Talk to me.
Hi, how are you? I can digress from your topic here. I have a question about future recipients of Social Security.
Okay.
Do you happen to know what is the safety status of it? And if it's below par, what can it ever be salvaged for us?
That's a very good question. And let me tell you, the way Social Security was designed, right? It was designed as a defined, I think it's called a defined benefit. So the way they did it, it's sort of like an insurance policy that people put in X amount of dollars and they get out. When we had the baby boom generation come, it kind of threw the formula out of whack. When the baby boom generation is going to retire, it threw the formula out of whack because there are that many more people that are paying in as opposed to those paying out. So what they tried to build, you remember under when in the days of Gore, when you used to talk about things like lockbox and so forth, to accumulate a lot of money during the times the baby boomers were working, so that at the end time it could be paid for. All of these are machinations. These are imaginary machinations. Let me qualify what I'm saying here. We don't ever, if we don't want to, have to worry about Social Security, Medicare, or anything else. We don't, when they talk about having to cut it back to 75% based on in the next few years because of that hump that I'm talking about, all of that is false. That's what they tell you. They tell you that because that is how the system was designed, not taking other economic factors into effect. So let me be plain with you. Social Security is only in danger if your politician wants it to be in danger. We can always pay the full value of Social Security by simply doing what I just said, paying it. We have something in America called a sovereign currency. Having a sovereign currency means we can pay all our bills at all times. It's they're economic concepts like inflation that would have to be mitigated. But what we have proven over time is there's a whole lot of slack for us to do it. So never ever believe that Social Security or Medicare is in danger. It is always used as a cudgel. I can prove what I'm telling you mathematically and historically. Continue, my brother.
In terms of the vaccinations, I'm not aware. So, hence, that's why I had a query about it.
Sure.
And of course, I don't know who to believe and what to believe when I read about
You don't have to. The nice thing about it, sir, is here's a funny thing, and I tell people this all of the times, right? People, when you watch CNBC, MSNBC, or the news channels, they'd have you believe that economics is difficult. They would have you, let me tell you what's difficult in economics. Trying to be a parasite in economics is why they attempt to make it difficult. But if you look at just standards of how things work, I'm not really plugging it, but I just need to tell you. Earlier on during the debates in 2010, I wrote a book called "As I See It: Class Warfare: The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom," and subsequently one called "How to Make America Utopia: How Not to Rig, Get Rid of the Rigged System." And in these, the idea is people have this false belief that the economic system is what you see on TV, which is false. The fraudulent economic system is what you see on TV. The stock market is a fraud. Let me give an example. How can True Social, Trump's company, that makes under $1 million worth several billion dollars, right? That is a fraud. That is a fraud that we're seeing every day, and people are looking at it as if it's sensible, right? What I am telling you, you can actually, if after getting a few concepts in your head, you can say, oh my God, why is it that we fall for all the crap that we fall for? Again, it's not difficult. It's not rocket science, So what I'm saying is trust what you are able to learn on your own. And I guarantee you that you'll suddenly be able to, from a political standpoint, elect those who are not going to have you snowed by the corporate state. So when it comes to who to believe yourself and what you read. I can point you to places to go to educate yourself on your own, as opposed to the corporate state that tells you what to believe. That's all I have to say. Anything else, Brother Jim?
Well, that was about it for right now. I do have other questions.
Well, look, I'm here every morning at 6 a.m. So please be a frequent listener, and you call us anytime you have any issues to talk about, okay?
Thank you so much. Feel free to list your references of sources of where you get your information from.
Well, let me just tell you, by the way, here's the deal. I have a blog, EgbertoWillies.com, as well as politicsdoneright.com. I write several articles every day. And in these articles, they're always sourced. So there's always link backs that you can go to and read. So let's go ahead, and if you have questions as well, you can send me an email directly at kpft@politicsdoneright.com. I answer my emails. Sometimes I get behind because I get so much. But my thing is not about trying to snow anybody or fool anybody. It's simply about us telling the truth. I learn as well. So sometimes you ask me a question that I don't know, I'll go find out and I'll learn with you. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. All right, let's go to Brian. Come on in, my brother from another mother. Brian.
Yes, good morning. So, the first time in U.S. history, we have a true political prisoner. And you can't say anything to change my mind about that. He is now a political prisoner.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
All right. That's your thought. And you said I can't change your mind about you thinking he's a political prisoner. So I'm not going to try to change your mind. I'll just tell you what I said on air last night. And it's the following. You may not agree with the verdict against Donald Trump. That's fair. You may think that you don't understand why they went back all these years for misdemeanors, tied it to the payoff that actually made it a felony because the misdemeanor occurred to hide what would otherwise have been released. You may not believe that, and that's fine. And what I do believe is that Donald Trump has skirted the law for so long. He is lucky that this is all he has gotten thus far. And I enumerated that over the show yesterday, and I said the following. 1, Donald Trump created a charity. He robbed the charity, and he got off with a hand slap. Donald Trump created a fake university, and it was indeed a fake university, where all he paid for in a penalty was $25 million after pilfering hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Donald Trump left a trail of workers like you, Brother Brian, who did work for him in his buildings, bought materials, provided their labor, stiff them and tell them, sue me, because he knew he had more money and could keep them dragged along for so long that they'll never get paid. That is theft. He never paid for that. Donald Trump raped women, not me saying it, a judge saying it. Donald Trump gave examples of what he did to women, not me saying it, Donald Trump saying it. Donald Trump has a litany of things that he has done over time. And people are supporting him.
Track to get to the point?
Well, the reason why I'm saying that, this is all a part of the point. He is not a political prisoner. He was finally found guilty, not only by a bunch of liberals, but he was also found guilty by somebody who listens to Truth Social and somebody who gets their news from Fox News. So that evidence to those 12 juries must have been very compelling if they went ahead and found him guilty for that which he did. My buddy Brian. Go ahead.
Okay, it was about financing his political career, right?
Okay.
That's what his charges were. Why was it done before he ran for president? Look into the charges itself. It was about campaign financing.
Yes.
It was about campaign financing, and he wasn't even running for the campaign at the time. He is a political prisoner. The number 3 person in the Department of Justice downgraded himself to work for the state to get him the charges. That is the equivalent of a football coach from the NFL going to teach a minor league class.
Brother. Let's look.
You have other callers?
No, I don't have it. No, I don't have any other callers. So I want to stick with you for a minute. Because there are a lot of people who think the way that you do, Brian. And I am not. When you start the conversation, like, nobody's going to change your mind from Donald Trump being a political prisoner. I can't change your mind, but I can probably change the minds of a few who are listening who think like you do, which is also very important, which is why also your calls are very important. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump is a criminal. He is a criminal that hadn't been charged and convicted for decades. And this time he got caught. And even if you say that they went around in circles to find a way to do it, the fact that they could do it because he did the crime, whether they would have let somebody else off or not, is not the issue. The issue is that he did the crime. So, Brian, I just need folks to understand that this is not a good person, nor a person who cares about you, Brian. So while you will exert a lot of effort and blood pressure on this guy doesn't give a damn about you. But guess who cares about you? I do. But anyway, we'll have a talk another time. You keep calling every day. Love to have your calls. All right?
I've never heard of anybody who was such a blind hatred of a human being. This is your so-called tolerant left, but it is an unbelievable blind.
It's not hate. It's not hate.
Hate.
No. Brian. Brian. I don't hate Donald Trump. I really don't. I honestly don't. He just isn't competent for the presidency, and that's all. It's not hate at all. I think he's a very entertaining guy. That's all. But I got to go to Joe real quick because I only got 30 seconds for Joe. Okay?
Yeah, I'll call back tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, brother. All right. Come on in, Joe.
Hey, man. I don't know how you can just take up for or defend the fact that this was just a political prosecution, pure and simple, dude. Like the second place candidate leveraged his Justice Department and all his tools to take his competition down. And if you believe otherwise, you're either a fool or a liar. And furthermore, this changes everything, Egberto, everything. And you know it. You've got to have a feeling in your heart that a feeling of doom, actually.
Actually, I don't. Let me just tell you, Joe. But I tell you, it's kind of late. Joe, hold on. Joe, hold on. We don't do the shouting stuff, Joe. Come on, man. We give everybody a chance to talk. It's just that you called in pretty late. Here's the deal. Call me tomorrow. We'll talk. All right?
Yeah, maybe. Adios.
All right. Have a good one. All right, folks, let's jump to the studio because we're right at the close.
Well, very interesting show today. No one seemed to listen to the fact that the Republican Party painted a horrible, morally bankrupt person in 2016 as a competent leader, and people bought it. So if you ask me, that's voter fraud right there. But nobody asked me that, so we're just going to pass it along to Jack and see what you got. Jack, what you got?
Well, there was a time Dick Cheney said Trump is just not presidential material.
I think he was right.
He was absolutely right. Anyway, folks, got to get out of here. Don't forget, get the rest of the show at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Love you all. Love all my callers. Every single one. Love the listeners. Jack, Howard, love you guys. We got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.